Why, hello, and welcome to the Jedi Jingle Maker live podcast. We are going to look at some guitars today. Now, if you are new to the Jedi Jingle Maker channel, I would encourage you to subscribe right now. If you are seeing this video after the live stream, I do these kinds of things pretty frequently, and I hope you will join me. Also, if you have something that you want to say, use the chat. I leave the chats wide open in these things so that we can have a conversation. And you probably have a lot of experience with Ibanez guitars or Schecter guitars, or maybe you don't. And really this video is for people that either are looking to get a quality instrument and have about $500 to spend, or those who want to get a quality instrument that will be a perfect modification platform without too much effort or too much expertise. So you can expect a minimum level of quality. Now, before we get into the bulk of the podcast, let's see what's going on in the Jedi Jingle Maker Batcave. There you go. Command Central. You can see I've got my mixer, which is how we're doing this podcast really from an audio perspective. Also, I have my little Spark Mini, which I swear by now. Tremendous amp for just about everything I need to do on the channel. And there I am. Okay, so in this video, we're going to analyze the best models, at least what I think are the best models under $500 from each brand, Ibanez and Schecter. We'll take a look at some of the features that are on both of them. We'll also talk about playability from my perspective. And playability from my perspective is based on my experience of playing them in guitar centers mostly. And these are the kinds of guitars which you will find plentiful in a guitar center on the lower rack, the $500 range. Now, is Guitar Center a good place to try instruments? I would claim it is. Are they set up correctly or at the best they can be? Probably not, which again is not too bad because that's how you could probably expect them to arrive. And one of the things I want to mention is that when you're buying a $500 guitar, expect to either really need to take it to a luthier, to a guitar tech to get it set up, well worth the money. To get the truss rod adjusted so the neck is just right and everything just is where you want it to be. So you don't have to fiddle with that. The action is good. There's no buzzing frets, all that kind of stuff. It's intonated. These may not be things if you're a beginning guitarist that you know how to do right away. So I'd recommend you go spend probably it's about $60. It's not cheap, but it is a musical instrument that should be set up. Now the optimal thing is for you to learn how to do it yourself. And I've got some videos on the channel about that, more coming, on how to perform kind of the basic things that you might want to perform yourself on a guitar to save the money if you're going to be building a guitar collection, that is. And that could be a goal for you. Certainly, collecting guitars is a fun thing to do, and I think it can be done fairly inexpensively. But just understand that guitar purchasing is in no way an investment. Almost all guitars go down in value. That is true with some very rare exceptions or some very long periods of time. But even the older Strats and things like that that have all the name recognition although they hold their value to some extent or maybe go up a little, it's not a thing that you would use to buy or sell. If you're going to get guitars, I would say just get them because you want to use them. Now, that's what I do. This music you're hearing in the background is music I've made with fairly inexpensive guitars, all guitars under $1,500, some under $500, some were about $200, but all those have had probably pretty significant upgrades to them. Now, I'll try to do a good job looking at the comments that are coming in. If you have a comment, please don't hesitate to enter it. In fact, it is encouraged. And what I'm trying to do now is just bring up this video in a separate window so that I can see any comments more easily. Very nice. And I even got that video muted before it looped back. So many little things that can get you in the streaming situation. Now I'm learning them bit by bit, and it's becoming easier to manage these. So welcome to the channel. If you are new, please subscribe. If you are not new, thank you for coming back and checking it out again. I hope you will give us your experience. Now, we've got a challenge going on in this stream, and that is to get to 10 likes. If I can get to 10 likes by the end of this stream, I will do a performance or one super chat under $2. Trying new things. This is like a video game of sorts. Today, we're diving into the world of affordable electric guitars, specifically Ibanez and Schecter. And the reason I picked those two is because they are known for quality. I believe they're known for quality. Even at the sweet spot, I think, for getting into the quality zone on both of these brands. So I really feel like through playing these instruments at various price ranges from down to $200 up to, say, $2,000, $3,000, that you start to get into the value at the under 500, just at the 500 level on Ibanez and Schecter. I think it's not going to be what you get at the $1,000 level, that's for sure. But it's usually a pretty good foundation with some fairly common issues that you could expect to potentially experience. And $500 is a lot of money, and you could go as low as $200 to get a beginner guitar. The problem is with going to the $200 level is you are much more likely to have significant setup issues. Again, that's just another $60, but I would like your initial guitar experience to be as good as possible, and I think it's worth spending a little extra money. Now, a lot of people start playing guitar and then give it up. Well, if you've got an Ibanez or a Schecter, you can at least not lose that much money when you sell it back. And you can sell it on places like Reverb or Craigslist or whatever. But, for me, it's well worth having something you're not going to have to struggle with to see if you actually do like playing guitar and want to get into it. All right, we're going to look at guitars on the Sweetwater website actually to see if what they have in stock right now. So as if we were looking for a guitar for a friend to recommend, this is what you should get. And by the way, this is something I have done many times, which is to go on this journey. And these are the kinds of the level of guitar that I generally recommend for that. I believe it's possible to find a beautiful instrument for under $500. So let's take a look. I'm going to first show what we have in store from Ibanez. Now, both of the searches are sorted by a few things. First is the $300 to $500. We're not even looking under $300, but the $300 to $500 level. That it's a right-handed guitar and that it has a fixed bridge. Now, that's something I do very intentionally because I think one of the last things you want to worry about if you're just starting to play guitar is whether or not it's going to stay in tune. And keeping your guitar in tune is something you're going to want to do. I would claim it's much easier when you have a fixed bridge. Just fewer moving parts, much less complication. So let's see what is available. Oh, it looks like I left 8-string guitars in the mix. I'm going to go just to 6 strings. That's better. All right, and I think what you find is that you have a few key models that are going to come into play when you're talking about Ibanez, and that's the S series, which is this thinner body, more lightweight guitar. The RG series, which has the pointy right horn. That's a classic of the Ibanez lineup. And I claim you can get into the quote-unquote RG experience very inexpensively. I mean, look at these guitars. Aren't they beautiful? And then there is the RGA, which is this pillow top cuts to it. And then there is the AZES, which is another great guitar. I have one of those as well. I have the AZES 31, and I also have an RG 421 PB, which is this one. I also have an Ibanez SEW guitar, but that one is out of this price range. That one's about $800. That's a great guitar too. So I think those are the 3 models we're talking about really when we talk about under $500 guitars for Ibanez. Now, this is a classic, the S521. You can find this in most guitar centers that are of any significant size, at least one of the 2 colors that they come in. There's this red and then this fade blue. They call it Ocean Fade Metallic. I've seen both of these finishes. They're very nice. Sort of look just like that. You can see the weight on these guitars is incredibly light. 6 pounds, 10 ounces is the heaviest out of the collection here on the Sweetwater site. You can see how thin it is when you go side angle on it. And one thing when you go side angle, you can also sort of see how close, it's tough to tell, but how close to the frets the action is. Now, they do some initial setup on these guitars when you get it from Sweetwater. So it will probably come set up better than just about anywhere else when you get it here, which is a good reason to get it here. I get a lot of my gear at Sweetwater. But certainly a pretty guitar. And if you look at the back, you can see right away that it doesn't have the back plate. It has those contoured heel connection, which is very nice and playable. Has that beautiful maple neck. Now, this is I believe, a 3-piece neck. So it has the scarf joint here up at the top of the neck. I don't love that. I do not love that. But for an inexpensive guitar, what are you going to do? I mean, it's fine. It'll work just fine. There's no reason to not love it necessarily, other than I would just like one continuous piece of wood for the most solid, least amount of movement possible. But for a beginner, this is just fine. But here's the thing. It's made of wood, so expect it to move. It's going to move. Now, here's another one that's just kind of mind-blowing to me that would be at the top of my list. Let's say this one would be in the top 10. As a matter of fact, we should keep a little note of which ones jump out. This one really jumps out for me. If you don't mind the pointiness of the guitar, which I don't mind, or the kind of the squared off edges of the body, this is a mahogany body that has a neck through, looks like a neck through or set neck. I can't tell if it's set neck or neck through, but that seamless connection. This one's been on my radar for quite some time, and as you can see, it gets a lot of positive reviews too. I've actually talked with Sweetwater about this one. So that just seems to me a beast among beasts. That's a 24 fret guitar, and it's got that RG neck, which, by the way, these RG guitars have the Wizard 3 neck on them, which I believe the Wizard 3, but the Wizard neck nonetheless. And that is a beautiful flat shredder style neck. It's really a great, easy playable one. Now this one comes in close second. It's another one I've looked at many times, and specifically because of the swamp ash wood. Now this isn't one continuous piece of swamp ash, but who cares at this price range? But this guitar would also be in my list of recommended. So 2RGs already made the list of recommended. I have a guitar which is almost this exact guitar, which is the RG 421 PB. So I know that the guitar itself is adequate. On mine, I did have some uneven frets, but nothing that caused it to be unplayable. That means that the frets kind of pop up a little bit higher on some than they should. That can cause issues if it's too severe, but I didn't find it to be an issue. But one thing I love about any swamp ash or any ash guitar is the grain. It's so beautiful. And I love it with that maple neck. I'm just a sucker for the maple neck. So this would be another one I would recommend a lot. This is a standard style fixed bridge that Ibanez makes. It works very well. Now let's look at modification possibilities for a guitar like this. What are the things you would want to modify? You can assume that the platform should be about as solid as you need it to be. Wow, isn't that cool looking? I love that white neck. I'm going to end up buying a guitar as a result of doing these podcasts because I just look at them and I fall in love. And I know how easy it would be to make this guitar from a good guitar into a great guitar. Okay, so what are some of the things that you can do very easily on this? You can see the little touches like the E-string through body hole is lower. And there's reasons for that. We won't go into those here, but man, look at those jumbo frets. This thing is so beautiful. Okay, so what would I do to upgrade it? Well, the pickups could obviously be upgraded. There are a lot of really easy options. You could get Guitar Fetish pickups, which are actually pretty good. And that would be an upgrade here. Guitar Fetish pickups, you can get the kind that you plug together and you don't need to solder. So that's a decent option. That's the reason I mentioned those. Or just put in like a set of Seymour Duncan pickups in this, or DiMarzio, or any number of other reputable, more expensive pickups, and you're going to have tonally an incredible guitar. Now these tuners are generally pretty good. The Ibanez stock tuners, not bad. I don't have big complaints, but I would replace those with locking tuners just to make it easier to change strings. And changing strings is something you're going to want to do a lot, I would claim, so that it sounds the best it can. Meaning a lot, meaning more than once every 5 years. I have a friend who bought an RG just like this that I had recommended it to, and he loved it, and he has never changed the strings from the stock strings. Had it for like 2 years. I think that's insane. Guitar with new strings just sounds so good. It really does sound great, more shimmery, more dynamic. So the strings are meant to be changed, not kept on for a long time. So learning how to change your strings is something you need to do right away as a beginner guitarist. If you have locking tuners, you just lock them in at the tuner, so you don't need to worry about wrapping them or getting a tight wrap on the peg, the tuning peg. So that makes it much easier. It also is really good for tuning stability. You don't have any slack possibility around the tuning peg, but I would claim there's not much opportunity for that when you have a fixed bridge anyway, which it's one thing if you have a tremolo, you're bending it up and down. It's much more likely to pull it out of tune. So this one is just a beauty. These 2RGs rank high, in my opinion. Now, for a little less money, you go down to these RG 421 options that have really cool finishes. And if you were wondering, is that a printed top? Well, you can look in the gallery and see it's not. They're all different. So life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But that one on the right is just beautiful. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. That's a very light guitar. Wow, that's a beauty. Basically, these are all the same guitars. They're all made in Indonesia. They're probably all made in the exact same factory by the same people, So I don't know that for sure, but I think it's likely. Now, one of the other things you can change on all these is this nut. That's not a graphite nut. You're going to want a graphite nut or something more hard like a bone nut. That's another good upgrade you can do. But this level of the RG421 now has several models, and you can see they all have that rosewood fretboard, but some of them come with the bound fretboard. They mix up the features in a way that's very interesting. This one, to me, seems a little bit more fancy than all the others, and it's much less expensive, $379. So if you're looking to save a little budget, maybe save the rest of the $500 for a setup, this would be a great option, most likely. That's a pretty guitar. It comes with the binding around the body of the guitar and also that white binding around the neck. Now, another thing that's really important with beginner guitars is to be able to see the fret dots. You want big fret markers that stick out so you can know where the heck you are on the fretboard. So these Ibanez's all check that box generally. And you can see this one has that mahogany oil. Not sure how I feel about that one. It certainly is interesting looking. Who knows? But for $349, I don't know, maybe they saved on the finish, so it's that inexpensive. For $349, that looks like a really good deal. So that's probably the least expensive one. Any of these RGs, in my opinion, would be a good option. All right, let's keep looking. Now this one is interesting. If you're into something really pointy, well, this one jumps right out at you. It's basically an RG, but it just has a slightly different body on it. You can see it's got very interesting options in terms of the finish. Each one slightly different. I kind of like this one over to the right. Let me know in the comments which one of the RGAs you like. But very light guitars. Look at this one. The one I like is 5 pounds, 15 ounces. It comes in under 6 pounds. Pretty guitars. You see how thin it gets on the contour there? Interesting. Yeah. Comfort cuts everywhere on that thing. And, of course, lots of models. Now, this is an interesting S model option, a little less expensive than the other one we were looking at. This one comes in blue and I think a shell pink, they call it. No, it's a pink gold metallic. But this one has the HSS setup. And that's something worth talking about with beginner guitars, what the setup is that you want. This gives you the most versatility, where you have that possibility for the single coil sound and the humbuckers. So for that reason, this becomes a pretty good option. Also, again, look at how light. Almost feels like a toy guitar when you play it, but it's not. Now, this is a very interesting option as well. The AZES. I have one of these, an AZES 31, which is the one with the fixed bridge, and I love it. And it's 3 single coils. But there's something you should know about this, and that is in the features of it. It is I believe, a 24-inch scale. So it has a much shorter scale, in my opinion, 25, my apologies, 25-inch scale. So that's slightly less than a standard 25.5 Strat, which makes it a little bit easier to play, 22 frets. But just know that it's a slightly off the standard measurements. A Gibson will be, I think, 24 and 3/4 or 24 and a half, something like that. And then the Fender is 25 and a half. So this is neither. But very playable. Also, incredible sounds. The one disadvantage I'd say is on the one I have, the electronics went south. And when I looked inside to replace them, it is so complicated and so uses so many weird components that it's like, what do I do? That's a problem, because repairing this thing, that's a problem for me. It's maybe not a problem for you. You can take it to a repair person and have them fix it, but just the fact that it failed so early would be a reason I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, so those are the Ibanez's. You can see that AZES comes in black as well. All right, let's look at the Schecters. Now, for $500 in the Schecter, you have a lot of options, but they really peg right to the far end of the continuum on price. They are all the way at the $500 level right away. But for that price, you get what I think is a much more solid guitar than the Ibanez. And I say that having played many of these. It just will feel much more solid. It doesn't have as much, in my opinion, of that shredder wizard neck, but it's still very fast neck, but it's different. To me, it seems more like a C neck, the feel of that, and the Ibanez seem much more like a D neck, a little bit more flat, if that makes sense. So both are very playable, and I think both are great for beginners, but you may prefer one or the other. You might want to play both necks to see if that makes a difference. But honestly, if you're a beginner, you're probably going to get used to whichever one you have to play. But both are able to be set up so that they are fairly easy to play. Good playing guitars. This Omen Extreme and Omen Elite 6 is a classic line. And I would point to a guitar like this to show just how incredibly beautiful an inexpensive guitar can be. Look at that cherry red. They do these with this yellow neck, which is interesting. I think it's just the finish, but it feels very good. You can see it's bound. Now, fret markers. This is great to have these. They're not just ornate, but to have these large fret markers so you can see where you are on the fret. I can't tell you how much that helps as you're learning to play guitar, to know where you are. And you'll notice that on all of these, they have these large fret markers. And I think that's really good. And you also have the option of whether you want to go with this hip shot style bridge or this six saddle style bridge, which I love, which I prefer. Very simple, fewest amount of parts. Or whether you want to go for this more Les Paul style bridge. But it's through the body, string ferrule holes, as you can see. They stagger their holes as well. And this one doesn't have that yellow neck. I kind of like that better, to be honest. But they have something for everybody. They have this neck plate, which isn't the same as the Ibanez, which generally all have that contoured heel. But still, I'm going to tell you, you have plenty of access on this thing all the way to the top. You see how it has the matching headstock with the body too? It's beautiful. But this is more of a Les Paul style bridge, which is also quite good. Matter of preference, but very easy to intonate. If you see that bridge, it's something that to me is one of the most simple systems to intonate. And also, on this guitar, on these Omens, there's not a lot to upgrade, oddly enough. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's see here. The neck. The nut material. Already Graphtec. Already graphite nut. That's huge. That is huge. And you would pay probably $50-$60 to have a new nut put in from a luthier. So that's a big value. Even though the nut itself isn't that expensive, the skill to put it in and install it correctly. This way you know it's being installed correctly all the way from the manufacturer, which is really cool. The other thing is some of them will come, let's see. This one doesn't. It's just the Tune-O-Matic string through bridge. Okay. The other thing is the neck and bridge pickups on these Schecters generally are very good. Schecter is a great manufacturer of pickups, so even their inexpensive pickups typically sound pretty good, but that's the kind of thing you can upgrade. So what would I upgrade on a guitar like this right away? Same kind of things. I'd probably go with the six saddle bridge, but even if I didn't, I'd probably replace either this floating bridge with something more fancy, and I would replace the tuners with a locking tuner, even though these tuners are generally very good. And I'd replace the pickups. And you've got a guitar that is very solid at that point. So many options, but you can see they peg right up to the $500 mark. Now, an interesting and cool thing is that they've introduced a whole new line of guitars which go down just a click lower. And I haven't played any of these, but I'm very, very curious about it. And this is the Solo 2 Avenger Standard. It looks like they did them in a lot of their brands. I mean, sorry, a lot of their models, like the Avenger here and the C1. Yeah, so really any of these guitars are great options. I think they're going to be mostly about the same quality, although these are a mystery to me, so I'm not going to vouch for them. But you can see right away they have some additional options which draw you to them. At the lower price, they have things like this caramelized neck. So just an incredible array of guitars at an inexpensive price. And let's keep our eye open on this one. I really would love to play one and find out how it plays, do a review on it. We'll see, maybe we'll do that coming up. All right, well, thank you for watching this live stream. That's my look through. So yeah, if I were recommending a guitar, I would say just about any of the ones that we looked at today would be on the list for a friend. I would probably lean towards getting a Schecter just because I feel like the quality is more predictable, although Ibanez quality is quite good as well, I would claim, but I really think the Schecter tips it on the quality once you get to the $500 range. Of course, that's more expensive than those Ibanez, so you get what you pay for in this range. I hope you will subscribe, like, and comment on this video. Let me know what you think, and come back for some of the others as we do these moving forward. Also, come check out my live stream performances where I perform my original music. Also, love to collaborate with other musicians, so if you want to make a tune, let me know. All right, thank you for being with me. Have a great day.